Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome and adventurous day because today we're speaking to a couple that does adventure therapy. Come on, that's cool. I mean, who doesn't like adventure? Life is an adventure. I love adventure. Thank you so much, Scott and Nancy Kiesling, for being here. I was looking forward to this all day because everyone knows I just absolutely love to travel. If I could travel 365 days a year, that is what I would be doing. And I find it so cool that you go and mix traveling with helping people, breaking their fears, and living their best lives possible. Guys, you could go and check out Scott and Nancy Kiesling at scottandnancykiesling.com. I'm going to put all the links in their show notes so you could go and follow them on social media and find out more information about them. Now, Scott and Nancy, before we get into the real stuff, you want to start by telling us how you guys met?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having us. We really do appreciate it. So there's sometimes two versions of how we met. So I'll tell you the correct and right first version, and I'll try to make it short. I've been in the movie industry for 31 years before I became a life coach, and I was working on a film called We're the Millers in Wilmington, North Carolina. And we tend to get stalked by folks when we're doing films, right? They want to see what's going on. This particular movie drew someone, and I became the
object of
the object of a stalking.
The funny part is usually he's just like, she stalked me. And the truth is, I was really kind of stalking Jennifer Aniston and Robert Downey Jr. and Jason Sudeikis, right? All these people that were working on the street that I was currently working in the building on. So I would go down and get some coffee at the coffee shop nearby and just sit out there for a while and watch them all work because I found it fascinating. And then over time, I met him a few times out there. So then we became really good friends. But it's funny because he's always says that I was stalking him. And I'm like, well, maybe not till later was I interested in that. So that's how we met on a movie set, I guess, outside a movie set. I worked in a corporate office downtown Wilmington. And yeah, so we met as friends for about a year before we started dating.
Yeah.
And now you're married?
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
Happily married.
Yep.
For how long?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Now you also do some really cool things like traveling the world, but on a much cooler level. You want to tell us how you got into that?
The traveling part really for me came naturally, right? Being in the film industry, I've traveled my whole career. I was never in really one place for a very long time. And I just love to experience cities and states and countries and different places for a period of time. Not just for a weekend, not just for a quick shoot, right? But to really get to know the people, get to know the area, get to know the food, and really taking that into my rock climbing business. We have a rock climbing guide business that we take people on trips, and that became traveling to do that. And then it just kept evolving into what we now have as adventure therapy.
Yeah, I mean, before I met Scott, I had done like the typical, like I went to Italy for like 2 weeks. I had done a little bit of traveling. But when I met Scott, he travels in a very different way than most people. And it's really exciting, right? He loves to get into the culture and get to know people and not go to touristy places. So traveling with him the first couple times, it was a very different experience and a really great experience. And it just became addictive, right? It was like, wow, this is so much better because you really get to know where you're going, and you get to explore all these places that really only the locals maybe know about, and some others, and
we generally don't run into big crowds
yeah,
of people.
We're kind of off the beaten path a lot of the times, but yeah, so you're getting to know people on a little bit more of a deeper level, and they share stories, and a lot of times we end up with dinners, with locals, of getting to know them, and like you said, spending extended time, which I had never really done. It was always like, oh, we'll go for like 7 days on a vacation. We're going for 3 weeks. We get to really get to know places. So yeah, that just drew me in and was like, where can we go next? Like, I want to go explore.
So if someone only has 7 days, or maybe even just 4 days to go somewhere, what could they do differently so that way they still get that intimate, deeper connection to the culture?
Well, and here's the thing, with most of our client retreats, that's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. It's 4 to 7 days where we, again, just dive in as deeply as we can off the beaten path. Mm-hmm. So the best thing that I can suggest is to, wherever you go, hire a guide. Mm-hmm. Hire a guide and tell them what you're looking for, right? Look, I don't want to go to where the crowds are going to be. I want to go to the off-beaten path. Mm-hmm. For this adventure, for this tour, for this whatever. Even if you're doing an urban adventure and experiencing an urban tour, you can still see it in a way that nobody else gets to if you can communicate that.
I'll give you an example. When we went to Costa Rica, it was just him and I at the time. I wanted to go on a horseback riding tour, and every tour that I saw was on the beach. And I was like, that's beautiful, but I want to go in that big jungle I see. Like, there's got to be cool stuff up there. So we talked to the guide, and they were like, well, we typically don't really do that. And so we talked to him a little more. And again, just kind of get to know them. We were like, we would really love to go up there in the jungle. So he was like, let me have you talk to so-and-so, and sent us to a tour guide down, like just a little bit, down a couple doors. And we had the best experience going up into the jungle, into this, it was really their like private kind of exclusive cabana to bring groups to have lunches, but you were up in the jungle. And it was
you could only get there by horseback.
That was the only way to get there. So it was perfect, So I got to and I got to see the beach a little bit on the way to get there. So you got the best of both worlds. And I was like, yeah, if you hadn't just said what you wanted to find,
it's really,
you would have never found it.
Yeah, and it's our whole life is made up of not taking, you can't do that, or that doesn't exist, or like, we just don't believe that.
We can make it work.
So it starts by knowing really what you want, and then being assertive about it and going for it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's your journey, right? It's your journey. Mm-hmm. It's your journey, and your journey, and your journey, and your journey. So if we understand that, and we co-create with the universe in the understanding that this is my journey. Yes, we get to have this journey together for a period of time, but it's still my journey, and it's her journey, right? And when we look at it that way, and we truly come to the understanding that it's for me, every experience, everything I want is for me. And the universe has given us this world, this physical world, as a playground. And it truly makes me think of being a child on a playground. And that's how we live our life, in play. And it's amazing when we just eliminate the story in the cage of the mind, the limiting belief that we can't have what we want, and we actually ask for it, we get it. We get it. We get what we need in the journey that we're taking.
So it runs and overflows into all areas of your life, not just traveling.
Really
so Nancy, it sounds like Scott was always like this. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Were you like this also?
I've always gone to the beat of my own drum. I've always been that type of person, right? Think outside the box, go big or go home type of person. Traveling, I've always enjoyed it, but I never had the passion that I do now. As far as self-development, again, always thought outside the box for being a woman and entrepreneurship, business owner, that kind of thing, but just enhanced it, right? Really found my capabilities of true empowerment, right? True empowerment of stepping into everything I wanted to do. So it's evolved, I'd say. It was part of my upbringing. My parents were very forward thinkers, so it kind of was planted in there a little bit, or a lot, I should say, throughout my upbringing. And, I've just kind of dove in to really figure out how to make it work for me the best it can possibly be.
So what was your biggest or craziest no that you had and you made it work?
Like someone gave us a no?
Yeah, like you wanted to do something and there was just so many obstacles in your way and you got to do it anyways.
I said earlier, I've been in the film and television industry for 30 years. Most of what I have done is special effects, so mechanical effects. So I blow things up for a living. I make rain, I make wind, stunts, all these types of things in films. Several years back, I was in an explosion. There was an era, and I was 12 inches from an explosion. And for the first year, they told me that I would never walk a straight line again. I would never, my cognitive skills from the brain injury wouldn't clear up, that my hearing would be where it was at that time, that I would never be able to rock climb again. I would never be able to rappel again. I would never, you're never going to do this. Just, this is as far as you're going to get. We're doctors, we're telling you. And so every time I would bring something to them, like, hey, I made this progress by doing this, they would say, well, that's great, but that's, you're not going to go any further. There's no place for us to take you any further. 3 weeks ago, I rappelled down a 100-foot canyon on my own, with no vertigo, with none of my symptoms that I have had for several years, by continuing to believe that I can change this. And it doesn't matter who tells me what. I believe that if I do certain things, that I'm going to overcome what those people told me that I couldn't. And I've proved that pretty successful so far.
Yeah. I thought your no was going to be when I denied you. Which really was the other way around, but you slowly won my heart. That's
funny.
I'd have to say my biggest no would be, I guess it's kind of twofold. It has to do with health and diet. I'm a big believer in alternative and that you can cure yourself with diet. My first experience with that was my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And in my rage of trying to figure out to find a cure, because there really isn't one when you get one at stage 4, and that's how pancreatic cancer is, I came across an alternative therapy that I got to speak with 3 pancreatic cancer survivors that were on like 15 years, 10 years, and 4 years, and which is unheard of, right? The survival rate is like 2%. So it gave me all this hope. Unfortunately, I learned of the therapy too late because it's just not out there. But I did get to have my mother about a month later than she was really supposed to. We were supposed to have her. So it was supposed to be about a 3-month survival from the time she was diagnosed, and we got close to 5 because of the therapy. But that was a big one going into not only my parents of, hey, I don't go conventional, right? Please try this and have that discussion. And then further talking to doctors and nurses that were like, you're crazy, right? But it gave me this strong belief of if you research, if you dig, if you have a belief, you can get people to not only support you, but try it, right? And then I had kind of a similar thing with my dog, and I actually got like an extra 7 years with her where the vets were like, you've got maybe a year and a half left because she had kidney failure. And I was like, no, right? So did the same kind of activity and researched and found people to support my decision and implemented the therapy. And I got to keep her around for 7 years. So I was like, I guess it was kind of my victory after the other, but I'd say it's those kinds of things. Whenever you get no, you can always dig and research and find other ways.
So how do you have this such strong belief that no matter what, you're going to be able to do it? What do you tell people who are just not like that?
Everybody can be like that, right? It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
We get to choose whether we stay in the limiting beliefs that we have, which are the I can't, I shouldn't, one day, someday, when I have enough of this or that, when I get more time. The bottom line is we don't get any more time.
Mm.
That's the bottom line. We all get to the same ending in this journey. And the rest of it is your journey. And so it's really about seeing and having the awareness of when the stories come up to tell you not to do what your heart says to do. And that goes into every aspect of our life. If you want to have a conversation with a loved one and you feel that, and then the story comes up of, they don't want to hear it. They don't have time for it. It's just my opinion. It doesn't matter. Right? The minute we can have the awareness to unlock the cage of the mind, to let the story go out, right? It's not going to stop the story. It's not going to stop that interaction or that interaction between the cage of the mind and the heart. But if we're aware of it, then we can change the reaction we have into an action, right? So we can have the awareness that the story is coming up, the limiting belief, the I can't, the I shouldn't, the they're going to think this, they're going to think that. And we look at that as an exterior thing. That's not us. We can get back into that heart space to follow our true journey, our true heart, which is where we start to lose resistance, meaning we don't see as many things in our way in this life, in this journey, not as many obstacles or challenges or problems as most folks want to judge them.
Yeah.
Okay, now before I ask you about the adventure therapy, what was that story that you said no? I need to hear that one.
Which actually, I think it was more the opposite, I guess. But that
that's funny.
I stated it wrong. I denied you, not you denied me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I gave you the no.
when Nancy and I first met, we truly were. I was not in a place that I was not looking for a relationship. I was on a very intense spiritual journey at the time. I took 3.5 years off of dating and completely, right? Like no one night stands, no nothing, to work on me. I had never been alone in my life, to do things on my own, to have my own opinions, right? So I was on this growth journey at the time.
And I had just gotten out of like a 5-year relationship, like maybe 3 months. So I was like, all men suck, don't want to, like in that mode, like, I don't care who you are that walks up to me, bye-bye, like that kind of thing.
We met and we really hit it off. Yeah. I mean, we really just were unbelievable soul connection. From the
What do you think was that thing that connected you so well?
I truly believe it's past life kind of thing. It was really the first time we ever got to sit and talk, because a lot of times we met outside of movie sets because I'd just show up, hey, right, say hi to my friend. So when we actually got to sit down and talk, I remember it like the feeling that you see a long lost friend that you haven't seen in forever and you're like, oh, you just want to hug them. And I'm like, I don't even know this guy. This is weird. Like, why do I feel so excited to see him? But we just connected.
It was truly a soul connection, and not in any way except for that.
No,
right?
Flirting. No,
it was just we both flirted a little because we just are that way.
Well, yeah,
our personalities
but not like intentional flirting.
No. But it really was. It was a soul connection. It was like this missing person.
Yeah.
In my journey, I had truly asked God to put a beautiful woman in my life who just wanted to be my friend. I had asked repeatedly to manifest that, right? I believe in manifestation. I believe in the universe, right? I believe in the law of attraction. And I had never had a woman in my life that one of us wasn't chasing the other one, ever, right? Up into my 30s. I wanted to experience that. I wanted to understand without the physical passion what that was like. And again, this is after quite a while of my spiritual journey and learning. And I met her. And we truly were not, either one of us, in a place to have anything. But she would remind me.
I was going to say, the very first time he handed me his card to like, hey, you want to grab a coffee sometime or whatever? I was like, just so you know, I'm like I am not in a place to be dating. I think you're awesome. And he was like, it's just coffee.
And we had many conversations up to this point.
So
right?
he got his wish.
So I was like, it's just coffee, right? I'm literally, and from the bottom of my heart, right? Like, just coffee. Mm. I enjoy talking to you. It's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. So she did agree to have coffee. Mm. And then it was like literally that soul connection of, where have you been? Why haven't you said hello to me before? Like, and I know the reason, because if we would have met at any other time in our lives, it would not have been the synchronicity, the soul connection that we had.
That growth had to happen.
Oh, it absolutely
wasn't the right time. Yeah. We're ready for each other.
Really, I always tell people, I'm like, you're marinating, right? And they're like, oh, forget. And I'm like, no, but seriously, you are marinating right now, and someone else is marinating, and soon enough, you guys will be just right for each other. But it is. I believe it's that kind of thing.
So you don't like people, not don't like, but aren't pro the concept of getting married young and then growing together.
Well, and even it depends. Are you an old soul, right? Or are you a young soul? And what your journey is. What is
that relationship like? Mm-hmm. There is no relationship that is identical to any other in this world. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it.
Right.
And what does it look like? Mm-hmm. You know, what was modeled to each of you in relationships? Mm-hmm. What are the beliefs that each of you have about love and a partner? Mm-hmm. What is it like?
Yeah, can you grow together? Can you support one another in life's
age? And yes, life experience has something to do with it, I believe, but it's not everything. Yeah. I truly don't believe that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So now, could you tell us what exactly is adventure therapy?
So
fun.
Yeah, just in the name.
It's play. It's play. Adventure therapy is our way of introducing the physiology into the mindset. So what I mean by that is, if you're struggling in life, if you're struggling in any area, relationship, career, health, home life, it doesn't matter. The focus that you have, the mindset that you have, is the overwhelming answer to begin to change, to have the life that you want, right? When we work on the mindset and the focus that we have, we can change our outcomes. We can change what we manifest. But just like the mindset has a memory from past experiences, so does the body, so does the physiology. And it actually holds every experience we've ever had in our life in the muscle memory of our body. And so when we act out depression from the cage of the mind, we can change the story we tell ourselves. We can change the focus of that. We can come out of the action of depression. But the body is going to find a time to bring you back into depression because it's used to it. Mm-hmm. It's comforting. It's where the body has spent X amount of time in your life.
Yeah.
Right? Going into acting out depression. Mm-hmm. The memory that the body holds is unbelievably powerful. So we can change the mindset, we can change the focus, but we end up on this roller coaster ride of coming back into whatever that challenge is for us. what we do is we tie adventure into our coaching.
Mm.
So we don't only develop a new mindset, we tie that into the physiology.
Yeah, and I mean, adventure can be anything, right? With COVID, we got creative and brought it into people's homes, right? And into their backyards, their environment, because normally we had retreats. We took people out, right? Let's go to Costa Rica, let's go to Bali. But adventure is anything that you deem out of your comfort zone and gets those goosebumps going and the adrenaline rushing. So it's really finding that with the person, introducing something to them that's different, getting them to experience everyday routine experiences that they may do in a very different way, with being present and actually experiencing it, not being lost in that autopilot cage of the mind. And then maybe some things that are a little outside the comfort zone, outside the box. And we can do that because of technology, the way we can communicate with people. So it's actually, COVID was really fun with kind of getting creative with that of, well, it's a big belief of ours, so how do we still bring it into people's lives after our coaching experience, right? Because that's what we want to do. So yeah, it's really tying those two together and getting people to connect. So then they're no longer on that roller coaster or pendulum.
Yeah, and within adventure therapy, we stop experiencing our life through fear.
Yeah.
Right? Fear holds us back in thousands of ways all the time. Our body is a great indicator of fear. And so again, changing that physiology ties those two things together. Remove the limiting belief about the fear, change the way the body reacts in a fearful situation. And then you've got a complete system.
The body now remembers that.
Now stays with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you give us a couple of examples that people can do at home and how that is going to affect their physiology and their mindset?
Yeah, so, a lot of times someone, when they're, well, we'll start with just going for a walk. A lot of times people are like, I'm going to go for a walk, right? I'm feeling anxious. I just got to blow off some steam. They go for a walk and they stay in that brain thinking, well, this is where I do my thinking. This is where I get shit done, right? This is where I go out and I compartmentalize. Well, they're lost in that cage of the mind in stories that are not happening right now. They're either stories from the past or things about the future. So we have them go for walks, go on a walk and actually take in everything around you, actually take in the birds, the trees, How do you make sure to stay focused on taking things in and not being caught up in your mind? Just awareness, right? We have a discussion prior to things they're probably going to think, things that are probably going to come up, and really get into a deep present discussion. And then again, it's a practice, right? That walk. So when you go for your first walk, we talk again. How did it go? Did you notice how much you were off in your story, right? And guiding them to come back to that awareness to, I can't, because once you have the awareness of it, you notice how often you're in that, right? It's like driving. You're on autopilot to go to work and you're like, did I even stop at a stop sign? I don't know, right? When you start paying attention, it changes what you see. And you're like, I didn't know that building had a red roof. Has it always had a red roof? Right? All these things that, of course, it's always had a red roof. It's been there for 10 years. But we've never seen it before because we were lost in stories so much of the time. So there's these little things that, when you have a behavior that is typical for you, if you tend to get bummed out and down and you curl up on your couch or you go sit in a certain room, literally just sitting somewhere else and not allowing yourself to go pull over the covers or sit on the couch and be in that moment changes your physiology to what it's used to, and it starts breaking it. So there's a lot of little things, but the walk is a big one for a lot of people that they're like, I didn't realize how much I never go on a walk and like look around and see what color dog I saw, and was it big, was it little, how many people smiled at me, and all different things.
And it changes your state. It instantly changes your state. When we drop out of the cage of the mind and into the present moment, into the tree, into the breeze, into the muscles it takes to hold the steering wheel, that presenceness, that becoming more present, really does change the state that we're in, which again changes the physiology.
Yeah.
If we're in the state of depression, if we're in the state of anxiety, if we're in the state of overwhelm, our body is acting out that state as well. So when we change that state, when we become present, when we see the tree, when we hear the bird, right? Nature is the best way, best medicine out there. So again, part of our whole thing is it can be sitting in your backyard under a tree, as long as you're being present to how the grass feels, how the dirt feels, how the tree behind you feels. What is it moving? Do you hear the leaves? Do you, what true essence is there in the moment, and not the story that you're telling yourself?
Yeah.
So can it also just be being mindful throughout your day? So you're making dinner, you're being mindful about how you're frying the onions and how you're chopping your vegetables. Is that all part of it?
That definitely will help, for sure. It's really, that definitely propels physiology to behave differently, changes your state, gets you in the present moment. But it's really when you go into those autopilot modes that are even more important, or when you tend to have the emotions that take you down or get you anxious, because we tend to do certain behaviors a certain way when we feel that way. And when we change the mindset to realize, I don't have to be depressed about this, or I don't have to be anxious about this, and you no longer live in anxiety or depression, your body is like, it's been about 3 weeks and I'm normally depressed at this time, so I'm gonna go here. And you're like, why am I getting torn? And you know what to do, but you kind of feel like you keep getting torn back. So incorporating all of it, but yes, starting with those things is a great place to start, because again, chopping vegetable, washing dishes, we're usually often, I should probably be going to the store and blah, 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 right?
We get going on that to-do list,
yeah,
right?
Training a new muscle all over, right? The entire thing, head to toe.
Oh yeah. Okay. So besides for walks and just being more mindful of what you're doing, what else interesting or adventurous could people do to change their mindset and their physiology?
Well, they can come on one of our retreats and we would definitely yank you out of your comfort zone.
And do things like?
We do everything from waterfall rappelling, horseback riding, whitewater rafting, hiking in the jungle at night, which is usually
super fun.
But it's really fun. You see a lot of cool stuff. And of course, all guided with professionals. What else? Kayaking, paddleboarding.
Yeah, and it's look, it's different for so many different people, right? Everybody's got, the where they live, what constitutes adventure for them. Some of the simple things that we can do that's very adventurous is become aware of our story. Become aware of our limiting beliefs that stop us from doing the things that we want to do, right? I want to go skydiving, and maybe that's too big. Let's use
Skydiving is an awesome example.
Okay. So I want to go skydiving, and then all these stories come up. Oh well, what would my mom think? What would my sisters think? What would my boyfriend, girlfriend, partner think? What would my boss think? Could I take the time off? Oh, I can't take time off, but it's only that day. And if we can be aware of that mind chatter, A, you'll find more time in your day. B, you will do things that step you out of your comfort zone, because you'll stop negotiating between your heart and your mind, right? You'll allow your heart to lead. I feel I want to do this. Oh, you can't do that. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough friends. You don't have enough this. You're not enough. You're not enough. Follow your heart. Go jump out of a plane. It's a blast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could do it even with saying hello to somebody. How many people stop to, I want to say hi to somebody, but, right, the story starts the same way. So again, big or little, that brings out the adventure, because you don't have adventure because you stop yourself. You can have adventure if you embrace it instead of coming up with stories to why you can't. even if it's going kayaking in your local area, right? How many, oh, gee, would I have to rent a kayak? Will that would cost, right? And all these things that we think would make it impossible. But when you start just doing the little steps it takes to make it all happen, before you know it, you're kayaking and you're like, that was not as hard as I thought it was.
We used to invite people to just a smile. You're walking, and obviously that's changed with the masks, but like to get to the simplest form of adventure therapy can be to smile at a stranger. Mm-hmm. When you're in the grocery store, when you're walking down the street, when you're in a park, just a simple smile.
It's really geared towards everyone's level of comfort, which is different for everybody. Yeah. And that's how we have to conduct our business. It's to each individual, because smiling might be really hard for someone and jumping out of a plane might be really easy for somebody. So you got to play with it.
What's so cool about it is that you could keep on going deeper and deeper. So if smiling's really hard for you, having conversations another level, and it goes on and on.
Yeah. And even if skydiving is easy for you,
having a smile might not be.
There are right. There are other things that folks find challenging. So,
Okay. So, how has this adventure therapy changed your own relationship?
Enhanced it 1,000 times over, but more over than that. It changed us, the relationship we have with ourselves. Mm-hmm. Right? So without the relationship I have with myself, all the adventure therapy, all the adventures, all the stuff that we do wouldn't have the effect it does without the undeniable self-love that I have. The place that I developed that, right? I was not always this way, as you so kindly put earlier. I grew up in an abusive household. I was abused as a young man. I have not always worn this smile on my face. And for me, that's the place where I found it. Was out there in the woods, was in nature, was climbing rocks, was playing in waterfalls. That present moment that you must be in when you're hanging 100 feet up in the air, holding on, brings a few things up. When those things come up, whether it's fear or I can't do this or right, whatever the limiting belief is, I found that going through that limiting belief, going through what I know, is where I found me. When I found me and became complete as a human being, as a person, as a man, then I could be complimented by someone who was complete, who had the self-love from their adventure to now co-create in this unbelievable universe of adventure that we get to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add to that is and it goes along with it, the connection, right? And the connection that you have with someone out on an adventure and that you have with yourself on that adventure, because you really are challenging yourself, and the only one you're challenging is you, and the only thing you have to overcome is your challenge. But the connection you build there, and then also the connection with the others, like people that come on our retreats are lifelong friends from the end of day one. Like it's just, it bonds so quick. So our relationship together, because we engage in a lot of adventure therapy, we have this very unique connection a lot of the time. But
there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of vulnerability. There's a lot of communication on both sides. And really the keys to self-love or loving relationships, or any relationships, whether it's coworkers, co-parenting, kids, whatever, is really, truly communication and vulnerability. And for me, that was super adventurous to overcome, to become vulnerable and communicate my truth from my past, from where I grew up. And so that's another big step that we take within adventure therapy.
Yeah, so many people look at that as like fear. Being vulnerable is like the hardest thing ever. But when you look at it, like you said, like a playground, an adventure, it becomes fun and it's exciting and you want to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, my last question for you. Each one of you separately, I want an answer of how would you define an extraordinary relationship without using these three words? Love, connection, and for you, I'm going to put an adventure.
I would say extraordinary for me is speaking my mind and what I feel when I feel it. So that communication and that vulnerability made this relationship like no other, right? And that was my practice. When I looked back on my past relationships and failed relationships and always getting the same outcome again and again in my relationships, I really had to look at what was I doing, right? Even though I could point fingers and go, well, you cheated on me, you did drugs, you did this, right? All these things that ended the relationship. I had to go back further, right? Because it started off great. Started off like, wow, this is awesome, we connect, right? Where did it go wrong? And where did my walls come up? And when I dug back, every single time, mine was I stopped. I was very surface based. I did not have vulnerability. I would allow you to be vulnerable all day long and ask questions and want to know. But if you didn't ask, I had nothing to really say. And I kind of.
If I did ask, then would you answer?
Yeah, right. And if people did kind of ask, it's like, well, tell a little bit of this, but maybe not all of this, because you'll probably think I'm crazy. And right. But again, all living in that story, not realizing I was even doing it. So you're living in this place of putting on masks because you're worried the person's going to leave and not like you, when all that ends up happening is they slowly start to go, they don't even know why, right? The connection's just not there anymore. They don't like you anymore because the interest has faded. They don't know you. And then they find something else, or something else takes precedence. So when I looked at that, it wasn't them, it was me in that moment. And yeah, of course, it takes two to tango, but if I wanted my relationships to be different, I had to start behaving differently to have what I actually said I wanted. So if I wanted vulnerability and communication, well, guess what, Nancy? You're gonna have to do it yourself. So that was the big thing that made this relationship so extraordinary, because it still comes up for me. I can feel those walls come up and go, hey, maybe you should just be quiet, right? But it's the work that I've put in. I'm determined to never let myself go down that road again. I will not accept that from myself again. So the adventure, that word that we're not allowed to say, part comes in when I go, you gotta do it, right? You have to communicate. And I communicate. And the reward is it's just wonderful. You get everything that you've ever wanted when you overcome those things that you kept being fearful of. Yeah. Sorry, I almost said like half of it.
I know.
I lose a point. Let's see how you do.
I think an exceptional relationship is it's aware, right? It's conscious, it's present. I think that in all relationships, our self-awareness is key to have any exceptional relationship, whether that's with your children, with your mate, with your boss, with your employees, with your relatives. It comes down to that self-awareness. When we have that self-awareness and we can be conscious, we can be present, then our relationships can be extraordinary in that conscious state, in that present state. So when we have the communication, when we have the vulnerability, the story isn't coming up of, maybe I shouldn't say that because that's going to lead to this, or we just speak our truth. Now, it's spoken in such a way that is understood from who we're speaking to. So we all have filters and distortions from our experiences that when we are in a conversation, I use my language, right? You have your language. that you use from your childhood, from your experiences, from where you grew up, all of that. We tend to communicate in that way. With relationships, we must learn how to communicate the way that the person that we're communicating to can receive it. We hear so many times two people saying exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Using different words, but the subtext, what they want, is exactly the same. But they can't agree on anything. Mm-hmm. Because I'm speaking from the way that I understand the world to be, and she's hearing it from the way that she understands the world to be. When we can really remove the filters, when we can truly speak in the way that someone else listens or hears, they will then understand where you're coming from. It doesn't become an argument, it becomes a conversation. And what did I say? The two most important things of a relationship are conversation and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it exceptional, truly.
Yeah. Wow, awesome.
Did I use any of the words?
I don't think you did.
No, you didn't. You did a great job. Woo! Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott and Nancy. This was amazing and so cool. I have to come on your retreats at some point.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. We
Thank
appreciate
you so much for having
here.
us.
It's been a fun one. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.